Well, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to start off by just recognizing that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I was supposed to participate with the governor's office in an event to light Arizona purple at the Capitol the other night, but it was called because of that windstorm that we got. But needless to say, as somebody who has spent much of my career handling cases of this nature, I want people to understand that this month and every other month that there is help for you, and if you are a victim of domestic violence, please report. And with that, I'll take your questions.
Sure. Thank you. So on the Nubia Rodriguez case, obviously we had several weeks ago a judge who remanded the case back to the grand jury for what she called a troubling presentation by this office and Phoenix PD. Then there was a 3-day preliminary hearing in which another judge found there was no probable cause. So now after that happened, I've spoken to the defense, and they firmly believe that this office pushed this case because Phoenix PD wanted MCAO to push the case, in essence, more seeking vengeance than justice. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would disagree with that characterization. We did feel like there was probable cause to pursue the charges, and we went prelim so that people could see openly what the charges or what the evidence was to support that. It's a difficult standard when you're trying to prove criminal negligence and you're trying to prove, as the law says, a gross deviation from the standard of care. Clearly an officer lost his life while being legitimately out there investigating something, and so given that there was probable cause in our minds, we pursued it.
So probable cause is different than, beyond a reasonable doubt, which is usually the standard this office says is their benchmark for pursuing it. So it appears that the court, two different judges, felt that this office was a long way off. How do you explain that discrepancy?
Well, I think the two judges found different things. I think the one judge found that there were some statements that needed to be clarified in the grand jury presentation, and the other judge, while agreeing essentially with our evidence in the sense of what our theory of the case was, just didn't feel like that satisfied the statute. So reasonable minds can differ. I completely respect the judge's ruling on this, and it's a tragedy for all involved.
So one more question there on this. In court, it was actually kind of a stunning moment. A Phoenix detective testified that within the department there was pressure, rumblings, complaints about him, including the fact that Officer Rutherford ran into traffic without looking both ways, that they were upset that he put that in his report. And then that coupled with other things we've seen, another detective, a case agent on the case, he texted your lead prosecutor, and pardon my language, I know we're live here, but he wrote about the defense attorney, he's a bitch, F him, and the F was not an F, it was the full word. I mean, that's pretty strong evidence of bias and wanting a case to go a different way and having a disdain for the other side. People are due a constitutionally they're due a defense. I mean, that's pretty concerning, wouldn't you think?
Well, I mean, obviously I would want people within my office, I can't speak to other agencies, to reflect professional behavior. And I've worked with defense attorneys my entire career and have had generally very positive dealings with them. And yes, I absolutely respect their role in the criminal justice system.
So now, though, your prosecutor responded to that text with saying, hey, you really shouldn't hold in your feelings, kind of making a joke of it. That wasn't disclosed to the defense. That could be potentially be a Brady type of issue. She knew that the detective was essentially saying the defense attorney's a bitch and F them. I mean, that's some bias, especially after or during you have a judge saying that there was bias in their presentation to the grand jury. That doesn't concern you at all? I mean, Phoenix probably should have conflicted this case off considering it was their own officer. So looking at all this together, I mean, I think the public will look at this and see some pretty big red flags.
Well, we looked at what our prosecutors did within this office, and we scrutinized it, and we did not find any wrongdoing on their part. Could a prosecutor have responded differently to that? Certainly, but...
Shouldn't they have, though?
Well, I understand the comment is basically calling that out and saying that's too much. It's probably not the most artful way to say it.
No, that's not how I take it. I don't think that that's accurate.
That's how I take it.
Okay, so you don't think that you really shouldn't hold your feelings in? It doesn't say you really shouldn't hold your feelings. It says you should keep that to yourself. That would have been the proper response. And then for her not to disclose that to you or to the defense, I mean, what's going on behind the scenes?
You know, Dave, I know you can appreciate that, yes, this was an emotional case for people. An officer who had served his, agency, who had served his community, lost his life, and emotions are going to run high. But in terms of that translating into a biased investigation, those are two different stories. And, emotions run high in a lot of cases from victims, from officers, from medical personnel, for example, and it's understandable, but we presented it. The defense certainly presented their case, and the judge made his decision, and I respect that.
Okay, so then my actual final question then is, giving all that emotions are high, why wouldn't your office suggest, or why in Phoenix PD, is just a matter of good police work, send this to another agency for investigation? They clearly were too close to it. It was obviously an important case for this office. I mean, we saw some of your top staffers sit in a preliminary hearing, which I've never seen before. So this was obviously a highly emotional case. Why wouldn't we take the extra step to make sure that this was unbiased and make sure another agency without this emotional connection to it handle it?
Well, I can't speak to your question for another agency. What I can say is we, in making our decisions, looked at the evidence, the videotape, and it was based on that, not based on, high emotions. So.
Just wanted to ask you if you have gotten a new submittal from the Peoria Police Department on the Brandon Zerth murder case. This was, you first received charges back in May when it happened, and it was sent back. I wanted to know if there's any update with that investigation.
So that investigation was furthered back for some additional investigation because of the potential defenses that are being sought in that case. So we don't have it back yet.
Do you have anything back yet from that? In that investigation, a child said that her mother, the suspect, Brianna, bit her on her inner thigh, but there was no pursuit of charges for anything abuse related for the child. Why?
I would have to defer to the police department on that. Obviously, we can look at something when it comes in, and if there's evidence there, we can file whatever charges we think are appropriate, but at this point, we furthered it back because we thought additional investigation needed to be done.
Brianna was arrested and charged with attempted aggravated assault in June. She was given a supervised release, even though she's a suspect of this homicide. She was not booked with bail. She was given supervised release on her own recognizance. How rare is that, and how did that happen?
It does happen, and it's something that I have been looking at since I took office about the appropriateness of bail that's being set in this county. I'm concerned about people who do commit crimes that are show that they are dangerous, and I'm speaking generically, not to this case in particular. And so it is definitely something that I'm concerned about, that we have appropriate bail in cases. I am definitely not a county attorney who wants to get rid of bail.
But in this case, in the release questionnaire, what facts does the state have to oppose an unsecured release? Suspect is a danger to others due to her aggressive behavior and prior arrest for homicide. Yet she was able to walk free that very same day. Now she's facing charges again, both just yesterday. What do you have to say to the family?
Have you asked the court for their reaction to why a judge set that bail or set that release conditions? I can't speak for the judge.
Is there anything else you want to add about this specific
No, I
case?
know there's some new charges. My understanding is that they were booked as misdemeanors, so I would refer you on to the city prosecutor for that, because those won't be coming here. But obviously, we will get the further back from the investigation that you first mentioned on the homicide.
So I actually have one unrelated question. I know we usually send questions ahead of time, but this actually just came to me as we're talking. And I'm not going to say the prosecutor's name because I haven't been able to reach out to them personally to request comment. I've learned or heard that a sex crimes prosecutor was perhaps placed on administrative leave because she's being accused of sleeping with a detective who was a part of some of her cases. Can you comment on that?
I'm aware of the situation. I have placed a prosecutor on administrative leave to have a personnel investigation done to get to the bottom of what the facts are of that case. And when that investigation is completed, we'll take the appropriate actions.
And then one last thing, I heard that this prosecutor came from this office, went to the AG's office, then quickly came back here because of the need to staff sex crime cases. Were you part of recruiting her, or who asked to bring her back?
I was certainly aware that people were talking to various people about coming back, and that would include this prosecutor as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.